3, 2, 1, action.
Reporting live from UFS. Sharp. A very good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tshepang Mahlatsi, and I am your guest for today. We will be engaging on quite a few things, amongst other things, including mental health. We will be looking into young people and the challenges that they face. We will be looking into some other topics that might be affecting young people, or rather young professionals. But it is very important that I make a disclaimer that for the purposes of this conversation, I'm not going to be formal about the engagement. I'm not going to be formal about some of the topics that we're going to look into. We're going to leave difficult words, difficult concepts to people who are in academia, researchers, to use their language in engaging on these issues, in engaging on these matters that are affecting young people. Well, before I start the engagement, it is very much important that I bring also this disclaimer to say that now I will be engaging on mental health, but I'm not a professional when it comes to mental health. I'm just a speaker. I invest time and energy in reading about mental health, in understanding the concept, and because and my interest for mental health as just a background, it comes from my own personal stories, or rather personal experiences in as far as mental health is concerned. It comes from my own interest insofar as wanting to develop and help our societies in responding to this issue that is somewhat has become a pandemic. Just a brief background. I'm Tshepang Mahlatsi. I'm the founder of an organization called Next Chapter, which aims to raise awareness on issues that involves mental health, and more importantly at the university spaces. How do we speak of mental health in Black communities? How do we speak of mental health in our churches? How do we speak on mental health in our communal setups? And what is the influence of these three institutions that I've referred to, how in Black communities, in our culture, in religion, how we speak of mental health? And I'll touch on that briefly later on as we move, because now it is very important that when we speak of mental health, what is mental health? How do we identify mental health issues among young people? But before we get to that point, because sometimes I always say to most people, and of course I allow academics and researchers to critique me in this regard, to say that now mental health as a condition it comes now from the things that people go through, things that people experience. And as I'm engaging now with you, it is very important to think of that one person who's saying, and of course, I will also make this alert that now some of the things that I will be saying might be triggering to some of you, but please, when you find that now something is triggering you, please do not be scared to push the conversation real quick to something that might interest you. But most of the time when we engage on mental health, we're engaging on something that comes as a result of certain things happening or not happening in our lives. What do I mean by saying certain things that are not happening or happening in our lives? As part of the research that I do, also from my background as introduction, I'm doing my Masters of Law, trying to respond to the issue of mental health, excessive stress leading to depression in frontline workers. And of course, when you do your literature review, you will not just jump straight to the issue that you are variables that you are studying, but it is very important that you do a background engagement on how does mental health affect people, and of course also from that I've come to understand that now stress is a very important part of our lives. Mental health, or rather some psychological, or rather some emotions, are very important in our lives. Crying is important for you, and of course the reasons for crying might not necessarily be the good reasons as to why you should do it. And also stress is good for you because stress gives us the opportunity. Sometimes some literature, or rather literature suggests that now it gives us an opportunity to look, or rather it motivates us to do certain tasks. Let's have a picture of someone who's saying that now I have an assignment that is due, and I've been given 2 weeks to prepare for this assignment, and you have all the time that you need, and up until the last week of the assignment, which is a huge assignment that you're going to do, only then you're starting to be motivated. And now you're motivated by the fact that now the due date is near. You're motivated by the fact that now you need to get this out of the way because there's other things that you need to attend to. You look at this, or rather you attend to this assignment because you're like, I have other engagements besides academics that I need to look into. And those things, and when we think of stress in that way, we're thinking of stress in a way that now it gives us the opportunity, just a quick push to be able to attend to certain things. So positive stress is also a good thing. Sometimes when we are scared, we are quick to act in a specific way. Let's quickly have a scenario of someone who's saying, oh, I was almost robbed now. I have never ran so much in my like this in my entire life. That person, because of that fear or rather imminent danger, the person reacted in a specific way. Another example will be a driver who's saying that now there's a truck that is coming, like we've seen this with people who are driving, like, dude, you are in my lane, and quickly your brain is saying, how do we respond to this? You are quick to change the lanes and you are in a better position. And unfortunately, not always does that come as rather develop, or rather that becomes useful. So now I was just trying to give you the pictures as to what happens to you when you are stressed, scared, or whatever situation that you find yourself in. But this is different when we're referring to pain. Because pain as a feeling, as an emotion, sometimes it affects us and changes us into being people that we're not. I can imagine how many things, let me quickly ask this question. How many things, bad things, have you done out of pain, out of frustration, out of whatever negative emotion that you possibly might have experienced? Some of us, we have done most embarrassing, disappointing, and when we think about things that we have done because of stress, because of other things, more especially in this particular case, because of fear or frustration, we are not proud of ourselves. But now the most important thing, the responsibility now is that now when you learn from what you've experienced in your conduct, you are able to look back and say that now, no, Tshepang, that was not the best way to go with it. That was not how you should have handled that specific situation. What did I just do now? I just gave you the background as to why emotions are important. Sometimes when you're stressed, you cry, you feel better, you do the work. Sometimes you're sad, you cry, you feel better, you do the work. Sometimes you're excited, you cry, and you feel better, because sometimes excitement can come in our way, and we sometimes make decisions as we would when we are sad, frustrated, and we do things that are outside of our character. There's nothing wrong with feeling. We can all agree that now there's nothing wrong with feeling, and I would love to believe that now the anatomy of a human, or the anatomy of man, is that now you should be in a position to feel, because if the world didn't give us the opportunity to feel, we would not be the people that we are, or our world will be boring. But now, Tshepang, you're telling us all these things about what you're feeling, what you should be feeling, and how that benefits us. We're talking about things that people acted out of emotions, and we have, unfortunately, may our souls rest in peace. We have people who've lost their lives out of rage, out of anger, out of all these feelings. We have people who have taken their lives out of rage, out of anger, out of sadness, out of depression, out of all these psychological illnesses, or rather psychological conditions that they're coming from. But now, why is it important now, Tshepang? Tell us, why is it important for us to be engaging? Why should I waste for people who will be watching at home? Why should I be wasting my data to listen to you talk about mental health? It is very important that you invest in first on face value background information about mental health. This will give you an opportunity to assist someone who might be going through mental health challenges and issues. This might be an opportunity for you to self-identify and know when you need help. This might be an opportunity, as which is some of the things that we'll be dealing with later, a little bit later, to saying that now what limits mental health conversations and challenges in our society. These are very important, and because now as a society, the statistics now just after COVID, World Health Organization is saying that now because of COVID-19, there's a prevalence of mental health issues in our communities. There's a prevalence of stress, there's a prevalence of depression, there's a prevalence of other mental health conditions and issues. And these were evident because people, when the world came to a stand still, and as a result, people had to act and try to find ways that speaks better into their psychological or rather general well-being. This gave people the opportunity to experience some of the things, not opportunity to experience rather. But now this, during the lockdown, people realized that now they are codependent. People realize that now they really don't like people like myself. People realize that now it's very, the world is better off if you are alone. But some people from that experience, they started experiencing issues of mental health. But now when we speak of mental health, one may ask, what is this thing that you're referring to? What is mental health? You spoke about sadness, stress, frustration, all these emotions are that mental health issues. Now, the trick is the activity that I would want us all to do in your just 2 seconds. Can you differentiate between mental health, mental illness, and mental well-being? What is the difference? What do you think is the difference between mental well-being, mental health, and mental illnesses? But there's a term that I also forgot. What is mental health diagnosis? A mental health diagnosis, wellness, well-being, all these terms are different. And now, because now I don't have all my notes here, I'll just touch base on some of them to say that now how are they different. Understanding that now mental well-being is a state of general well-being. Are you in a good space? Are you in a positive good space? And the mental illness is saying that now is the absence of a good mental well-being, or is the absence of being in a good space. When we talk of mental health, rather, we're saying that now it refers to your general engagement with life, day-to-day moving of things, your engagement with life. But when your mental wellness and well-being are affected, or rather they're in the negative of the spectrum, now we will be starting to talk about the mental illnesses, which are now becoming, and these are what? These are illnesses that emanate from the last term that I just referred to now, which is a mental health diagnosis. So when you speak of a mental health diagnosis, not the diagnosis that you do from Instagram mental influencers or people who speak from their personal experiences about these terms, but when you speak of a diagnosis, we're saying that now this is an of course general term of definition of diagnosis that is a medical assessment or an assessment that is done by a professional. So now when we have mental health diagnosis, that means you've seen a counselor, psychologist, a psychiatrist rather, who did a background or medical assessment or an assessment using the DSM-5, or rather the recent study shows that now there's a DSM-6. So now this is a diagnostic tool that has been used to make an assessment on your general mental health and mental illness. So now from the illness and health, which are in the negative, we are starting to have a diagnosis. The mental health now, illness will now be forming what? From the word itself is self-explanatory. Mental illness will be what we call in now your depression, your anxiety, your schizophrenia, your ADHD, you mentioned them. There are quite a lot of mental health illnesses. The list is so long, and now the fun fact about this also, something to take home as you are, to notice the fact that now all these diagnoses, some of them they don't attack, or rather are not diagnosed of them all at once. Let's take a quick example of a schizophrenia versus your depression. And and depression, we have two types of depression, rather three. We'll have your acute, your mania depression, and your major depression, right? So now here we are saying that now anyone can have depression, anyone can be depressed, and depression can emanate from quite a lot of things. For example, some people, the sadness that I spoke about earlier on, when it is prolonged, it takes few days, it takes a month, it takes 3 weeks to a month. Now we are starting to be concerned. Your emotions when you are sad for a very long time and you don't feel interested in continuing with life or doing anything in this life. Now we are saying that now there's a concern. We might be talking about what? We might now be talking about a mental illness. So sometimes people will experience, the example that I made earlier on of a person who somewhat was involved or rather there was a road rage, and said this person almost killed me. And this person, unfortunately, the driver in this case, would be someone with the background of what we call then anxiety. So this person, from that anxiety, they think about this every day. They think of the worst case scenarios of what could have possibly happened. They think of all these other things that happened, and now their emotions changed from that shock, that frustration. They become sad and think, what if I died? They think of all these other things. Now, with time, this is becoming a prolonged feeling, and with time, this is taking a week. It takes in 2 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. Now this person is developing signs of one. Firstly, let's say we can say this person is having a PTSD, which is a post-traumatic stress disorder, which sometimes, as it is defined in a literal sense, or rather as literature defines it, would be saying that now this is from the stress disorder that is emanating from one would say from an accident or something traumatic that happened to this person. So now this person from post-traumatic stress disorder, they can develop other mental health issues. What will we be talking about now? They can be depressed, they can have sleepless nights, they can have what you call the nightmares and about these things. Do you see now what I just did? That I just showed you that some mental health issues, they are not independent. They are as a result of a specific feeling, experience, or things like that. So now that we have identified, or rather, because let's go back to the activity that we're doing, now we have spoken and we know what mental health is. Now later, when it becomes a very prolonged issue, it becomes a diagnosis and it becomes a disorder. So I'm giving you a chance to go ask the following questions on the net, as we do with the diagnosis, to say that now mental health, mental well-being, mental illness, ill mental health, and also mental health diagnosis, and also mental health disorder. All of these, they can happen, unfortunately, in one person. One person can have all of these. The first one will be, I'm positive, I'm having everything fine. Then something happens, I'm having a negative element of things. From the negative element of things, I'm having a diagnosis. From a diagnosis, I'm having a disorder. So that is as far as literature suggests and give us the background of what all these conditions are and how they affect us. But it is very important as we do the differentiation of these terms and how they can affect us, to make a clear understanding, or rather paint a picture that these conditions do affect us psychologically and they affect other people. And let's take a quick example of someone who's saying, my friends know me, I have a mental health issue, so they will always make sure that now whatever I need I get, they're taking care of me. But when are you abusing your condition to benefit and also abuse other people? We have people who are in relationships, who are abusive in relationships, and they play their mental health card when they don't want to be held accountable. So now the Mental Health Care Act gives the term that I will be using for the purposes of this discussion, is giving us the terms that explains that now we're talking about what now? We're talking about mental health care users. So I might not be popular for this statement that I'm going to mention, but sometimes mental health care users, and of course this will be us who want to fly with the mental health card on social media, because now some of the studies are showing that people who live with mental health, they are using it as a personality, as an identity of some sort, and so that they can be able to get some benefits. There's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur. I mean, from my own mental health issues, I developed over time, and I started talking about mental health. Then starting from talking about mental health, you started having organizations like a next chapter. Then from there, you started being one of the shows. It was Hectic 99. I was when I saw the name there, they said Tshepang Mahlatsi, a mental health influencer. So the connotation can be a negative one. But now there are situations where people are using these conditions, and there are conditions, and I'm really sorry for othering these, but people are using their conditions as a way of abusing other people, as a way of getting away with things, as a way of shying away from responsibilities. Now that is as far as the background of mental health is concerned. And of course, if you have any questions or any other views about what I just said, you can just throw your comment in the comment section so that we can take this conversation further.